Right.
The dollar is in the process of dissolving, and nothing happens overnight usually. The dollar, we called the top on it recently in the international forecaster at 89.5 on the USDX. That's an index of 6 major currencies versus the dollar on a weighted basis, the strongest, the highest rating going to the euro. And so that index is down to 78.34 as of Friday, and had a low of 71.18 about a year and a half ago. I think it's going to revisit 71.18. And so to answer your question, the dollar is being naturally devalued in the marketplace versus other currencies, particularly these 6 majors.
Okay, but what would be the point of dissolving it and then instituting a new currency?
Well, I think what's going to happen after that, and I think 71.18 is doable by the end of the year and probably in September and October. And I think after that it's going to drop to 40. And I think when it drops to 40, I think that the world powers, so to speak, the G20 and maybe everybody else, will have a meeting such as the Smithsonian meeting that was held in the early 70s or the Plaza Accord in 1985, and they're going to revalue and devalue all the currencies against one another, and they're going to put a gold component in there. And I think that's what's coming. And you ask, what do I think is going to happen to the dollar? Up until that time, which is probably 2 to 3 years down the line, to the dollar devaluation, I think it will lose 2/3 of its value versus other currencies. But all currencies are going to lose against gold.
Okay. Brian is in Indianapolis on Coast to Coast AM for the international forecaster, Bob Chapman. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I wanted to ask a couple things. The first one, just a quick question, is about this deal that they made with the Swiss banks today, and how is that just a smoke screen? Is that going to actually free up some of that hidden money? But the other thing I want to make before you answer that is I want to point out something he said earlier. I was a high-level assistant to an executive VP at a Fortune 100 company for a couple years, and I can tell you that I dealt with this guy's personal taxes. And I can tell you that this guy's accountants made the Enron guys look like amateurs. And, I found out after a couple, 3 years that this was just the nature of these people and how they dealt. And I kind of, got out of it when I saw just how much they got into that.
How much are we talking about here, Brian? How much money are we actually talking about?
As far as
what they were, what do you think? What he was getting away with, essentially?
Oh, well, one example is his wife was this amateur painter, which wasn't worth a hoot, but he would buy one of her paintings for $75,000, $100,000, and then donate it, and take the write-off. And she wasn't she wasn't anybody, just like I said, an amateur painter, just
right
stuff like that they could back, if they had to back it up, they had lawyers to deal with that. But my greater point is I don't know why the people aren't getting upset. All I hear, and mostly from the pundits that are on this station during the day, but I heard mostly the Republicans today talking about how we're limiting these salaries, or they're talking about limiting the salaries. And if you look at the history for the last 10, 20 years, the top 1% salaries have been going up at 10, 11% a year, and the average workers has been going down, a negative with inflation. And you look at the amount of wealth that's being transferred to the top 1%, there's a 10% shift in just the last 8 years. And, people are like, well, we can't take the money because they work. When is enough going to be enough for people to say, we hear about the socialism redistributing wealth. Okay, well, to some degree I understand that, but when is enough going to be enough? That these guys are going to be making 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times the average worker?
Right. And I think that's a great question, Brian. Appreciate that. Bob?
It's up to the shareholder, basically, to demand that the stop. And, they have to vote this sort of thing out of office, so to speak. They either get rid of the executive or they put limits on what they can make. And they have been very reluctant to do that. I don't know why. And, of course, the public is now just finally realizing the seriousness of the situation. You take the boomers; they are net savers. Now, they were the biggest factor in the economy over the last several years as spenders, and they obviously are seeing difficulty ahead, and that's why they're starting to save and liquidating debt. And so, with the exception of that, I think that the public is just wandering around in circles, and they're hit with this barrage of government propaganda, the psyops that go on every day, convincing people that everything is going to be okay, and we get green shoots coming up here and there, when in fact it's poison ivy.
Right. You know, I wonder whether, I'm just going to throw this out here. I'm sure a lot of people scream at their radios and throw things, but I wonder whether some of all of this talk about, you know, Obama's a socialist, isn't a smokescreen in and of itself to create an environment where there can be more of this massive cash grabbing going on at the top in the name of capitalism. You know, doing it in the name of you know, the American way. And so it sort of desensitizes people to the idea that, you know what, there really isn't a justification for these outrageous salaries and bonuses.
It's called corporate welfare.
Yeah, it seems like it anyway.
And, you know, it stems from the fact that on most issues, Congress refuses to go against their benefactors. And those are the people who give them campaign contributions, and, you know, what they don't spend, they get to keep. And also the lobbyists who are involved. I mean, I've got some incredible figures going in my next issue on the amount of money that's being spent on lobbying and contributions presently. And so how do you make Congress respond? If we can get legislation passed, which I think is impossible, unfortunately, to do away with lobbying and the way campaigns are financed, we could have a government that wasn't beholden to corporate America. And what we've got today is corporatist fascism, and it's wrong. It's not America.
Mike is in Livermore, California on Coast to Coast AM for Bob Chapman, the author of The International Forecaster. You can link up to him at coasttocoastam.com. Mike? Go ahead, Mike.
Morning, Ian and Bob. I had a question about the automotive industry, but as I told your producer, for those laymen who don't understand about this, it's a game to these people. Go watch the movie Trading Places. With Eddie
you know,
Murphy
you're right. Yeah, I think that's an interesting commentary. It's probably closer to Trading Places than we want to admit. We'll have time to get your question in, but probably not the answer until after the top of the hour. So go ahead and get your question in.
Well, I've been in the automotive industry 35 years. I've been out of work for 5 months now, and it's impossible to find anything. What the government has done to the automotive industry and the unions, it pretty much destroyed it. Does he see any comeback to that whatsoever? And basically, as I see it now, as I've been listening, it looks like it's going to come down to revolution.
All right. Well, let's hang that one out there until next hour. Will it come down to revolution, and or will Mike get his job back first? We'll find out coming up on Coast to Coast AM. Take a look online, and you can link up to Bob Chapman there. Take a look at the blog with some interesting stories. And actually, I want to play for you the thing we played earlier. I linked it up on the blog. We'll play it for you coming up next hour as a bumper on Coast to Coast AM. This is Ian Punnett.